Hello, everyone. If you have been paying attention to my most recent episode of Rating Your Fall Guys Creative Maps, that being episode 11, for those who are watching the episodes at a later date, you will have noticed that at the end of that particular episode, I have teased that I will be ranking the various Fall Guys Unity rounds that was released when the game first launched in 2020, titled now as Legacy Season 1, till the end of Unity seasons being officially recognized with Free for All Season 3 having the underwater theme. In this particular video, I will be showing you my tier list of all the Fall Guys Unity rounds that have has existed since the start until the end of this particular game that has launched before Creative took over. So in this actual tier list, there are over 70 plus rounds that have been recognized from the start of Legacy Season 1 all the way to Free for All Season 3. I have split my rankings to 5 different categories. The first being labeled as Golded Rounds. The second, where the rounds are more skill based compared to RNG. The third round is when there is equal amounts of skill as well as RNG being involved in the rounds. The fourth category, RNG more than skill. And lastly, we are looking at only ping-based RNG rounds. Just a little explanation on what I mean by ping-based RNG is that the round itself is very RNG based, but when you are playing in off servers based off your ping, which means that you will see the ping icon more often at the bottom right of the screen, usually where my mouse is currently hovering, you will get even more disadvantage when playing that particular round. Now that I've shown you my ranking of categories, I would like to say that this list is more of a subjected list, as every single person's tier list is always been. However, I try to look at things from much more on an objective point of view. How I rank the various rounds into the 5 different categories is based on 3 different factors. Number 1, factors that can affect playing experience, which means that 80% of the time is whether a team round, because when you have teammates who have no idea what they are doing, it can affect you. Number 2, any possible variations where we'll see in certain rounds that it is labeled differently as per the popular fan base in Fall Guys themselves. And number 3, if applicable, my quick overall thoughts on that round. So quickly jumping into this, we have round number 1, which is Block Party. So for Block Party, it is more of a skill equals RNG round. However, for those of you who have been paying attention, that there is a variation of Block Party known as Parkour Party. Parkour Party will bump this round into a skill more than RNG round as currently shown. And overall for the rounds themselves, this round is very predominant on your positioning, and unfortunately, with one of the updates that they have done increasing the jump physics, the round has been unfortunately ruined because players are able to just jump on top of the walls effortlessly, which is why I believe it currently rests in the vault. However, in certain shows, in customs, you can still get the round to get ample practice. Moving on to round number 2, we have Dizzy Heights. Dizzy Heights is a map that is more of skill rather than RNG because you are looking at the direction of the various conveyors. And my tip to players is that you would want to observe and adapt the map and be aware of the starting preview as that can change the tide in an instant. The ending can have different variations which will not affect the round too much, but it's still why I consider this map to be more of a skill-based map more than an RNG map. For the third round I'm ranking, we are looking at the round DoorDash. DoorDash, simply put, is a RNG round because you never know which door will open and which door will not. Nothing else I have to say about this round because every single time you play DoorDash, it is always the same. No different variations can be observed except for perhaps the ending where whether the presence of yeeters or whether there's the presence of a watery field. But these small tiny details do not actually change much of the rounds in general. For round number 4, we have Egg Scramble. Egg Scramble, it is more of an RNG more than skill map because for those of you who have really played through the different variations, you will have noticed that Egg Scramble alone is a team map, and with all team maps, there is a factor that you get teammates who have no idea what they are doing, some teammates wanting to sabotage their own team. These factors can affect playing experience, and at the same time, particularly for Egg Scramble, there are sometimes variations where a lot of gold eggs exist where I even believe there's a variation where only gold eggs exist, which can mean nearly 100 points for a team that has collected at least 20 eggs. There is also a much more lesser known variation where a giant egg spawns, and that giant egg is indeed a golden egg, and that means that whichever team first gets the golden egg essentially will not lose that egg for the rest of the round. For round number 5, we have 4-ball. 4-ball is a round where I would like to say it rests in between skill equals RNG and skill more than RNG round. Because when it comes to 4-ball, ping is also a factor, but usually players are able to mitigate the issues of skill for the factor of RNG compared to the skill because you can actually see the shadow of the soccer ball as it drops and the timings in which you can do a dive in order to bounce the ball further away from the opposition. And that is all I have to say about this map. For the next round, Four Mountain. Now, Four Mountain is actually very, very interesting because Four Mountain is just a simple dash to the top of the mountain and in the crown grab variation final. So, because of that crown grab risk, this round has to go under RNG more than skill rather than skill equals RNG because sometimes on your end you may have grabbed the crown, but on other people's end you may not have grabbed the crown. Players who often play in off servers would greatly understand what I mean on this, and there's nothing else much to say about this. Fruit Shoot is our next round. Fruit Shoot is definitely an RNG more than skill round simply because of the cannon's unpredictability when shooting out the various objects, because there is one variation on fruit shoot that does not actually shoot out fruits, but for some reason is how to shoot out, I believe, volleyballs or some other objects that is essentially not fruits. But moving on to the next round, we have Gate Crash. Now, Gate Crash is a round where you are looking at a skill equals RNG round, because all you have to do is to quickly adapt to how the pattern of the gates are lowering and rising up, and just plan your movements accordingly. Now for our first finale that I will be looking at, it is Hexagon. Hexagon is where you are looking at skill equals RNG, again simply because of various factors such as the field of the hexagon that you are left with. That is the RNG factor, because players may not know the jump dive strategy in order to save an island of tiles. Sometimes intentional sabotage to ensure that players above you fall a greater height, and sometimes right into their elimination. And different factors can cause players to really not like this level. But when I look at this round alone, you will think that adaptation is definitely key as per all Hexer rounds. Moving on to the next round, we have the perhaps the most iconic course round from Legacy Season 1, and that is Hit Parade. Now, Hit Parade is actually a round where you are looking at skill more than RNG, because for Hit Parade alone, the map doesn't really change much, and which means that RNG is not even much of a factor when you are working towards this type of particular rounds. So all you have to do is to adapt, focus, observe, and run your bean to the finish line to qualify. For the next few rounds, we have 3 team rounds in a row. The first being Hoarders. Hoarders is a RNG map by default, because you may have an equal amount of ball not excuse me not an equal amount of balls every single time when you start off the round, because there are a total of 7 number of balls whenever you start this round. But again, Hoarders is a team round, so team distribution is very, very important. And as we all know, with the matchmaking system, this does not happen 80% of the time. Next round, Hoopsie Daisy. Once again, it also falls the same fate as Hoarders. However, Hoopsie Daisy, there is a higher chance for you to make an equal comeback. The next round, you have Jinxed. For Jinxed is where our first round of ping-based RNG happens, because Jinxed alone is already an RNG round with the team round and team distribution, but at the same time, it works similarly to tag, and with the game's off-server logic, ping is indeed a factor that you must consider in its entire existence. Next round we have our 2 perhaps much more fan favorite rounds, Jump Club and Jump Showdown. For Jump Club and Jump Club is actually a skill round, because in Jump Club you will have to just survive until the timer runs out, or survive the different variations with different factors that are implemented in the round themselves. For Jump Showdown, it will fall under our first Golden Round category, because in Jump Showdown, there are tricks that you can use to jump across from platform to platform in a total of 8 platforming pieces. And for very, very skilled players, they sometimes do bar jumps to proceed from one end of the board to the other end of the board when they are running out of tiles in order to make that logical and safe jump. Now for the next two rounds, perfect match is an example of a skill equals RNG round, but more on the boring side because all you have to do is to memorize the location of the fruits. That's it, end of story. If you ever get the variation that I call cannon match, where the cannons shoot fruits at you, then you have to be a little bit more careful, as that can bump the level down to more of an RNG round. And now for our next variation of perfect match, and players always prefer this variation when we get perfect match, and that is perfect death match. Why do players call this round as perfect death match? It is because of the spinning bar that threatens to eliminate even the best of the best players due to potential griefers. And on top of that, you still have to play the same round in memorizing fruits. And how often can you do that successfully without messing up in public lobbies when you are just trying to survive and do your best in a qualification round? I will leave you to think about that as I move on to the next round, rock and roll. Rock and roll is an example of a RNG round because as for rock and roll, you are really looking at a team round once again. So team distribution, adaptation from individual players are very important in order to let the particular team qualify. Rollout is an example of a skill map which favors skill more than RNG because you are looking at adaptation and understanding of which is the safer platforms to go on to at any certain time frame before the round times out. And now we have the, I believe, second final, no, apologies, third final in this list, Royal Fumble. Royal Fumble, and along with two other rounds that I will quickly go on to, is more of a ping-based RNG round. Royal Fumble has a very notorious function in which players can actually Bluetooth grab a tail even though you are nowhere near them. And that has been a factor ever since its existence in the game servers, and players playing in off servers for a greater challenge, especially sometimes for those in the West playing in Japan servers, because we all know that in the Japan servers, they are the most sweaty servers in the entire Fall Guys game themselves. But that's all I have to say for Royal Fumble, and we shall move on to Seesaw. Now, Seesaw has been currently vaulted due to how its mechanics can be exploited per se because of how buggy the seesaws are, and yet seesaws are still in creative. So, what is the exact point of that? I have no idea. But Seesaw is an example of a skill equals RNG round because the only thing that stops you from qualification is sabotagers that wants to tilt the seesaw to its extreme in its third and fourth section until the timer runs out. For this next map, Slime Climb. Slime Climb, as many of you would actually be a little bit more surprised about, it is really a skill-based map, not because of how speedrunners can really play through the map, but more because of how you have to be fast and not make mistakes at the same time in order to avoid elimination. The next two maps, Tail Tag and Team Tail Tag, they are ping-based RNG rounds for the reasons as shared earlier, which applies to Royal Fumble. Bluetooth grabbing is the most dangerous factor in this game. Now we have the Whirligig as a round. Whirligig, it is more of a skill based, more than RNG round because the round itself doesn't change with different variations, nor is there unpredictability involved in this particular round. And in order to just reach the finish line, all you have to do is to do a mad dash while understanding how the windmill blades turn, and at the very start, at times it will be the various bar skips that you can use. Now then, for our viewers who understand how I am as a player, they would know that I am one of the players who really love the round tiptoe. However, after deep consideration, I have decided to place tiptoe as a ping based RNG round. Not because it's that you cannot simply do a few things like observing the path, because for one thing, a tip for you players who wants to master tiptoe, the tiles that are definitely safe to step on will not shake within a duration of 30 seconds. So any fake tiles that shake, you are guaranteed to know that these are tiles that will disappear upon getting in contact with a beam or different obstacles like in the Blast Ball Bangers event and various other factors. And when you sometimes step on a tile on off servers, the game may not recognize it, and that is devastating for players who play off servers very commonly. Because let's face it, not every single streamer can be from your region, and you have to look for streamers that are friendly and accept players from other regions. Now we have just rated 25 rounds, 26 if you were to include Perfect Deathmatch, as it is more of an optional round. But all these rounds are from Legacy Season 1. So now we are moving on to Legacy Season 2 with the start of Egg Siege, and we will conclude Legacy Season 2 with Big Fans. So for Egg Siege, it is more of a skill equals RNG round because it is harder to steal eggs, despite it being a team round, and there are less factors that can influence the elimination of a possible team. Next round, we have Hoopsy Legends. For Hoopsy Legends, you can go under the same category as Hoopsy Daisy, where the positioning of the hoops can cause players to qualify a little bit much more differently. Night Fever. Night Fever is a round where you are looking towards to get to the finish line, and yet there are just simple different factors that can affect your progress, but again, it is less of an unpredictable map because the only variation that really changes is the second section of the map, where there are three different variations can appear, but that's not unpredictability, that is indeed adaptation. The next round we have is War Guys. War Guys is as much as a fan favorite round that it can be, it is much more of a skill equals RNG map because you need skill to be able to scale the push boxes fast, and RNG depends on the positioning of the various push boxes that can help you escalate to the next section of the particular map. Last round that we have in Legacy Season 2, Big Fans. To this day, I find it humorous as to why players cannot easily qualify from Big Fans, because Big Fans is a map that is much more skill based, as all you have to do is to adapt and look at how the fans are rotating. That's all this map really entails, and yet people just simply fail, which is kind of disappointing. Now, moving on to Legacy Season 3, we start off the round with Freezy Peak. Freezy Peak. Oh, how I miss this map. You, dear sir, are going into the category of skill more than RNG map because of how you are looking at a simple climb to the peak of the mountain in Freezy Peak. For the next round, we have Penguin Pursuit. Penguin Pursuit is indeed a ping-based RNG round because once again, team round, team distribution, and sometimes this penguin is just a little too mischievous for players to work with. Roll off. As much as I do not qualify on the roll off more than not, roll off is indeed a golden round because it takes immense amount of adaptation to be able to win a game of roll off due to the concept of rising slime. The next round we have in the list is Ski Fall. Now, Ski Fall is actually a round where it is much more skill more than RNG because there are different ways for you to qualify in Ski Fall, and it just depends on the player's amount of adaptation in order to do so. For Snowy Scrap, similarly to Rock and Roll that I have ranked in Legacy Season 1, it is more of an RNG map due to it being a team round, so team distribution and team cooperation really matters here. Now, Thin Ice. Thin Ice is one of the rounds that has always been considered as a skill more than RNG map because the fact is, in ice, it takes 3 cracks in order to crack the ice, not just a one shot deal about it, and which means that in order to save the tiles of ice, you can use different tricks in order to save yourself. And that's really all I have to say about thin ice because let's face it, in any round you need adaptation. The next round we have is Tundra Run. Tundra Run is indeed very, very, very interesting as there is not much of an adaptation, not adaptation factor, less of a unpredictability fashion involved, but there are times where there is a set amount of unpredictability involved, but it doesn't affect the playing experience as much as some of the maps that have already been categorized in the RNG category. The last map of Legacy Season 3, we have Snowball Survival. Snowball Survival is mainly rest in between the skill equals RNG rounds because for Snowball Survival, no matter of which variation you get, whether that being the easy variation, the medium, or the hard variation of Snowball Survival, yes, for players who are not aware, Snowball Survival have 3 different variations that you are working with. But Snowball Survival is simply one of the best rounds in the game when you get the hard variation, but it cannot be considered as a golden round because the snowballs, where they roll, is considered unpredictable. And that, in all intents purposes, I cannot put that as one of the best rounds. Now, moving on to Legacy Season 4, in which themed as the season set in the distant future, or for players who already knew the name of the season itself, it is known as Fall Guys 4041. Anyways, the first map we have to rank is Basketfall. Basketfall is a map that is much more despised by players, And there are tips and tricks for you to actually clear the round for your team, and it really takes some understanding of the maps to understand how the basketball physics work. But still, in all prospects, when you consider them and when I consider them, it is more of an RNG map because team distribution matters a lot. Big Shots, it being a survival round, is one of the few survival rounds that I have to categorize as RNG because all the cannons are unpredictable, nothing else. Hoverboard Heroes, we are looking at a skill equals RNG round because the only part that is much more RNG or unpredictable is the section where there are cannons firing down upon you. All other sections is dependent on the player's adaptability. The next round we have on the list is Power Trip, and Power Trip, as much as I would like to say it has always been a RNG round, is never anything based on skill because team distribution again matters here. The next round we have is Roll On. When we have a roll out, we have a roll off, so why not include a roll on in the mix? Roll on is indeed a golden round as all you require is adaptability. There's not much unpredictability that is attached with this round. The next round we have is Short Circuit. For Short Circuit, we have is under skill more than RNG because the only part that is unpredictable is how players love to keep hitting the bloody buttons that can alter whether there is low graph or high graph in one of the dashing sections. The next round we have is Skyline Stumble. Skyline Stumble has always been an skill-based round, but however, there are some factors that make it a little bit more unpredictable, so it has to go under the skill equals RNG round. And next up on the list, again, we have another round that I favor a lot, then that is Button Bashers. Button Bashers goes under the categorization of ping-based RNG because delays matters a lot when it comes to hitting the buttons. Are there methods that players have used to overcome the factor where the buttons are much more unpredictable? Yes, there is. However, what does that matter in the long end if you can't score a single point due to ping? Now for Slime Scraper, again, this is another skill-based round. However, it is not just a skill-based round. It is instead in the golded round category because there are less factors that can cause you to get eliminated, as for one thing, the variations are always fixed. There are very minimal changes that can change how you will perform in this map alone. So now moving on to Legacy Season 5, the Jungle theme season. First round we have Bubble Trouble. Bubble Trouble is, as much as this round is half and half considered as good round, it is much more RNG as to which section the bubbles will appear in. Lily Leapers. I have seen a lot of speedrunners in Lily Leapers after all throughout my time in playing in this particular game, and I cannot put Lily Leapers as a goal round because there is still some unpredictability when it comes to the ending section of Lily Leapers, where multiple factors exist, and yes, even though you can take the alternate path that lies into the left and to the right of that section, it can cost you a qualification if you are in a very sweaty server. The next round we have is Lost Temple. Now, Lost Temple, It's not so much of a ping based round, but similar to For Mountain, it is a crown grab round, and which doors open in Lost Temple, you will have zero clue. So as a result of that, this is more RNG due to the unpredictability. The next round we have on our list is Penguin Pool Party. Similar to its team round of Penguin Pursuit, you have to worry about this naughty sheep, sherbet, is that how you pronounce that? Being a little bit naughty and not allowing you to grab it in order to earn 25 points in order to qualify. Stomping Ground, all I have to say is these rhinos are unpredictable. Nothing much to say about that. And we move on to Treetop Tumble. Treetop Tumble is a skill round as there is little amount of unpredictability that can be involved in the round until you beat the bloody rhinos. Some fruit, once again, this type of rounds appear where they are considered more of a logic round, and for some fruit, it is suffering the same fate that perfect match does, as some fruit you have to memorize the location of the not memorize the location of the fruits, but understand where are all the fruits coming from due to how scattered that they may be at times, and you have to understand before the timer runs out and the rising slime can lead you to your doom. Afterwards, you have to stand on the correct tile in order to ensure that you do not get eliminated. Now, moving on to Legacy Season 6, as designated by this apparent Four Guys poster over here, we have Airtime. For Airtime, you are actually looking at a round that is skill more than skill equals RNG. Apologies for that. But because of how Airtime, you have to depend on various locations in order to earn zone points. There is that slight factor in that, and if you are playing in off servers, the unpredictability in which you will get knocked off the map is also a factor. But the unpredictability really only applies with the sections that contains a trapeze, and if you use other sections of the map, you can overcome the unpredictability. Full Tilt is an adaptation based map, so it will go under skill map more than RNG. The RNG was earlier much more of a factor when the 360-degree seesaws do not tilt back, and players have exploited that when the beginning of the season started. But ever since then, the developers have indeed changed this to ensure that the seesaws tilt back and added alternate paths to ensure that players do not suffer instant elimination. Leading Light, unfortunately, is a ping based RNG round, as this Leading Light is not leading at all. It is rather misleading as to where it wants to go. So don't assume where it will go, and you should be set to go. Next up on the list, we have Party Promenade. Party Promenade is indeed a skill-based map because of how little amount of changes there are when we are looking at how the map is like, and it is fairly consistent. And for the last free, last legacy map that you can find in solos and or knockout, it is Pipe Dream. Currently, Pipe Dream is vaulted because of issues with mobile devices, but Pipe Dream is not a skill equals RNG round, it is more of a skill round. because the only unpredictability part lies in between which part you enter and which part you exit out from. Now for a map that is exclusive to its own track, we have Sweet Thieves. Sweet Thieves is in fact a golden round because it is instead of just thinking it is more of a team-based round and team distribution matters here, but Sweet Thieves really hits the nail as to how it wants a team round to be played because there are different factors as to how it can be played. When you are at a disadvantage, when you are the sneaky beans, do you try and go to help your team win, or will you free your other members that have been captured by the jailers? But now, ending off the Unity Legacy seasons, we now move into the Unity Free for All seasons. And starting off the list, we have Blast Ball. For Blast Ball, as much as Blast Ball is a fan favorite map, it is much more of a ping-based RNG round because the unpredictability of where the Blast Balls can hit you from and your ping can in fact make you get blasted from absolutely zero distance homing. The next round we have is Bounce Party. Bounce Party is not much relevant to ping, but due to a known bug that even I have experienced where sometimes even when as you go through the hoops, it does not count. I have to put this under ping-based RNG as there is no skill really involved in bouncing on the bounce pads in order to earn the various hoops. The next round we have is Hexering. Hexering is really a skill-based round because there is more adaptability more than unpredictability. And that also applies to our next few rounds of number 1, Speed Circuit, number 2, the Swiveler, and number 3, Track Attack. These maps are all fixed, and even if the variations can change, much more particularly so for the round the Swiveler, where there are 4 different variants to work with, you can still be able to adapt fast and not get eliminated due to unpredictable factors. The next round we have is Volleyball. Now, Volleyball, I have to consider it as much more of an RNG round more than skill. The amount of skill that is involved in Volleyball is based on how you are able to constantly save the ball to hit it into opponent's court, but at the same time, ping is also a factor. However, ping can be negated by simply timing your jumps earlier. Unlike button dashes, where the positions of the buttons are fixed, Volleyball is free moving. And for the last round that we have for Free Fall Season 1 was actually a collab with the Sonic skins when they were further released, in which in is Bean Hill Zone. Now, Bean Hill Zone is really an RNG map simply because the map is fixed, so not unpredictable in that factor, but unpredictable as sometimes when you move across the various elements of zones that have rings, sometimes the rings don't respawn, sometimes you can get sabotage by players by not collecting a certain ring that can cause it to respawn, and other various factors that is much more unpredictable and out of your control. Now approaching our final 2 seasons to rank maps from. First we have is Cosmic Highway. Cosmic Highway is a skill map because of how you are adapting to the map's movements more than it being unpredictable in various fashions. Frantic Factory will go right into ping-based RNG because for one thing, you don't know where the buttons are going to light up, and second thing, you have no idea where will the buttons count for you. Hexaterrestrial, as the final hexa round, it is really much more of a adaptation round when the playing field gets smaller and smaller due to the constraining walls. You have to understand where to move, and that is really all for that round. Now, Hyperdrive Heroes is a round that is, in fact, goaded because it is not just about adaptation, but you have to be careful at the same time. One mistake can cost you your chance to qualify and move on to the final as Hyperdrive Heroes. Despite all this time, it has eliminated countless players and even some of the most skilled players in the game that I even have seen. The next round we have is Pixel Painters. Pixel Painters, you are under RNG because Pixel Painters is a team round. You can get screwed by your own teammate who decides to sabotage your board because they don't even realize that the picture you have to replicate is right in front of you for reasons unknown. And other factors as well, such as the picture that is generated, can actually be a lot more complicated than some people realize. Now, Space Race. Space Race alone is, in fact, a map that deserves to be in its golden spot because of how fixed it really is. However, Space Race has some issues where the factor alone of the thrusters not allowing you to reach the maximum potential and the hitbox of the thrusters are sometimes a little questionable, yet these factors do not cause it to be in any form unpredictable. Now for the next round, we have Star Chart. Star Chart, I am very conflicted in this because of how the jumps have been ruined. The map has been ruined by the increased jump physics, but Star Chart in general before the complete ruination is more of a adaptation and memorization type of map. RNG comes from the fact that the path can change at any point and you cannot simply assume. Tiptoe Finale, similar to the round Tiptoe, it's gonna go into ping-based RNG round. For Treat Thieves, again, similar to Sweet Thieves, it deserves its own category really for both Sweet Thieves and Treat Thieves because it really shows what you have to do for a team game that is not completely biased to any single team and both teams can either team apologies can win in any single situation. For Blastlantis and very similarly to Blast Ball, the blast balls that are present in this map cause it to be much more ping based RNG round. Hoop shoot, similar to all the other hoop rounds that have already existed, is an RNG. It's not really an RNG round because of how unpredictable the hoop's position can be. In fact, the hoops have already been fixed, but the unpredictability comes from the ping base that appears. Yet, there is also skill involved in this map as well, because which path to take is a factor for you to have a chance to qualify. Kraken Slam, a skill-based map, because the timing in which you can avoid the tentacle slams is very crucial. And there is ample time for you to adapt to the map when it comes to how this particular because in Kraken's land there are 4 different platforms, right? And the 4 different sets of platforms, up to 3 will tilt until the final minute where all 4 tilt, and you have to ensure you know how to do some special strategies in order to survive. And the next map we have is Puzzle Path. Puzzle Path is rather an RNG map because of how the paths are never fixed. And players apparently love to just run to a random portal without realizing which is the correct path. And for the last round we have to rank, it is Speed Slider. For Speed Slider, it has always been a skill-based round, not much more so of an RNG round, so it has to go under the Golded Round category. That is all I have when it comes to the ranking of Unity rounds that have been created by Mediatonic themselves. And I hope you guys have really enjoyed my ranking of these rounds alone. And you will notice that in the comments section, I will be listing out my thoughts in fuller detail on each round. So please do keep a lookout on that comment, and I'll see you all very soon for another round of reading and reviewing certain things that exist in Fall Guys.